The elevator doors slid shut with a slow metallic sigh, sealing me into that cramped box just as my phone buzzed again. At first, I ignored it. I'd had enough of work messages for one day, but when the buzzing didn't stop, I finally glanced down. Family group chat. So excited to see everyone on Christmas. Another message came in. Dinner's at 6. Don't be late. A wave of confusion washed over me. Everyone. Dinner. Don't be late. I scrolled up, expecting to see the message where they'd sent me the plans. But there was nothing. Not a single mention of me. Not even a passive-aggressive reminder. Just silence. A conversation happening without me. Plans unfolding without my name anywhere in them. Before I could process the sting of that realization, another notification popped up. This one from my email. The subject line made my stomach drop. Invoice. $25,000. Serena's car repair balance. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake. Maybe a scam email. Maybe someone hacked my account. But as soon as the PDF loaded, there it was. My name, my address, my supposed agreement signature at the bottom. I hadn't signed anything. I definitely hadn't agreed to pay for my sister's new engine, tires, and whatever optional upgrades she apparently needed. My heart thudded in my chest, louder than the elevator's buzzing lights. Excluded from Christmas. But somehow expected to pay. I leaned against the elevator wall, my thoughts spiraling. Grant, my father, would say it was family responsibility. Elise, my mother, would insist it was just helping your sister. And Serena would probably just shrug, flip her hair and say, "You make more than me. It's only fair." That was the dynamic. I was the reliable one. The responsible one. The one who didn't cause drama. The one they didn't invite home apparently, but still saw as their personal emergency fund. The elevator dinged, doors sliding open to the hallway of my apartment building. I stepped out slowly, replaying the messages, the invoice, the silence between us. Each step felt heavier, like the truth itself was pushing down on me. They hadn't invited me home, but somehow they still expected me to pay. Inside my apartment, the quiet was too loud. I set my keys on the counter, staring at the empty room that suddenly felt much bigger. And for the first time, I wondered what decision I was going to make next. I didn't realize how familiar this feeling was. Not the shock, not the exclusion, but the quiet ache beneath it. It was the same heaviness I'd carried since childhood. Built layer by layer, year after year. I was 11 the first time I understood what it meant to be invisible in my own home. Grant had called us into the living room. "Show me what you've been working on," he said, rubbing his hands together. I'd spent weeks building a homemade computer tower from spare parts I'd scavenged. It hummed to life when I pressed the button. A small miracle for a kid who'd learned everything from library books. Grant barely glanced at it. "Looks messy," he muttered. But when Serena handed him a stick figure drawing, a lopsided cat with purple whiskers, he lit up like she'd just painted the Mona Lisa. "Look at this talent. We should frame it." I remember standing there, holding my creation, feeling like I had turned invisible right in front of them. The pattern only deepened when I turned 16. Serena was 14 then, and my parents threw her a small parade just for passing her learner's permit test. But on my 16th birthday, the birthday where teens dream of keys and celebrations, I got a handshake. Literally. Grant clapped my shoulder, said, "Proud of you," and walked away. 2 months later, when Serena actually got her first car, she took it out the very same night and sideswiped a mailbox. Elise rushed into my room screaming, "Why weren't you watching her?" She was older now, 14, and somehow still my responsibility. The science fair was another bruise. Every year I brought home ribbons. Regional, state, even a national finalist once. Elise kept saying, "We'll find a place to display them," but they ended up tucked into drawers like clutter. Meanwhile, Serena's dance and cheer trophies lined the entire hallway like a shrine. Guests always noticed. That was the point. When college acceptance letters arrived, I remember calling Grant at work, excited, breathless. "Dad, I got in. Full scholarship." His response, "Keep your head down. Don't get cocky. No, congratulations. No, I'm proud of you." Just another reminder. In our family, recognition wasn't mine to claim. It was borrowed space, temporary and fragile. Piece by piece, I learned to fold myself smaller, to avoid taking up too much emotional real estate. To live in the shadows of applause meant for someone else. I learned to live in the spaces between applause, but I never planned to stay in it forever. And as I stood alone in my apartment, $25,000 invoice still burning in my mind, all those years came crashing back, not as memories but as fuel. This time, the pattern wasn't going to win. The present crisis suddenly looked a lot less like shock, and a lot more like the final straw. I stayed standing in the doorway longer than I meant to, staring at the invoice still open on my phone. $25,000. It didn't even look real. Just a thin stack of numbers arranged neatly on a white PDF, like someone had typed out a random fantasy cost. The kind you joke about. The kind no one would ever actually expect a single person to cover. But my family wasn't joking. The breakdown was even worse. $8,000 engine replacement. $6,200. Cosmetic corrections. $4,000 wheels plus alignment. $3,100 optional upgrades. Taxes plus service fees that felt invented and stamped at the bottom. Balance to be paid by December 26. The day after the Christmas gathering I hadn't been invited to. It wasn't just the amount. It was the casual cruelty of it. The assumption. The entitlement. The belief that of course I would handle it, the same way I'd handled every inconvenience they dumped in my lap since childhood. If on cue, another banner slid across my screen. Serena. Just take care of it. Dad stressed. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal. $25,000. Not a big deal. No apology. No explanation. No understanding that I didn't even know she had a new car, let alone wrecked it. I opened the family group chat again, this time scrolling slowly, the way you scroll through evidence. Photo after photo filled the screen. Grant in front of the Christmas tree. Elise holding a secret Santa mug. Serena showing off gingerbread cookies shaped like little dancers. Their lives fit together neatly, perfectly, like a puzzle I had never been meant to complete. They didn't look sad I wouldn't be there. They didn't even look aware I was missing. My chest felt tight, like something was expanding inside me, pushing against my ribs, demanding space after years of being pressed small. I sat on the edge of my couch, phone still in my hand, and let the realization settle in my body. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't an oversight. This was a pattern, one so old it had started to feel natural. I took a deep breath and felt it, an unfamiliar sensation. Not anger. Not heartbreak. Something steadier. Sharper. A clarity that didn't shake but anchored. I walked to my desk and opened my laptop. The hinge clicked with a soft, decisive sound. A sound that felt like the start of something. Not dramatic, not explosive, but deliberate. As the screen lit up, an awareness surfaced. A truth that felt like it had been waiting years to be spoken. They didn't erase me by accident, and I didn't have to stay written in pencil. My cursor blinked on the empty screen, like it was breathing with me, patient but expectant. And in that stillness, something finally shifted. A quiet part of me wanted to ignore it the way I always had. Another part, the part that had been growing quietly for years, simply paused. Paused. And prepared. The room dimmed around me as the laptop screen glowed brighter, casting light across my hands. Something was about to happen. Because this time I wasn't going to disappear. The glow of the laptop screen steadied my breathing. For once, I didn't feel rushed by emotion or swayed by old instincts. I opened my financial dashboard. Accounts, savings, investments, projections. Clean numbers. Consistent growth. Quiet proof that every accomplishment in my life had come from my own discipline. Not their guidance, not their support, not their applause. This was my first reminder. I wasn't dependent on them. They were dependent on me. That clarity sharpened the moment. I pulled a fresh digital notebook onto the desktop and typed 3 clean bullet points. They expect contribution. They do not require presence. Their needs are treated as obligations. Mine as disruptions. Seeing it written out felt like turning on a light in a room I'd been stumbling through for years. The pattern wasn't subtle. It had been carved into my entire life. With their logic, I owed them everything, and they owed me nothing. A strange calm washed over me. Contribution expected, presence optional. There it was, the entire family operating system summarized in 5 words. I opened another folder. One they never asked about, never cared to see, but always benefited from. Partnership agreements, tax filings, client contracts, receipts, proof of assets. The foundation of my independence. The documentation they pretended didn't exist because acknowledging it would mean acknowledging I had built a life outside of them, and my apartment shifted around me as I worked. The living room became a desk. The desk became a strategy table. And the whole apartment, my quiet, overlooked life, turned into a command center. Then came the part one knew would matter most. I picked up my phone and dialed the number listed at the bottom of Serena's invoice. A monotone synthetic voice greeted me before switching to an operator. "Thank you for calling. How can I help you today?" Kept my tone even. "I need to report a vehicle for repossession." There was silence. Just a brief hitch, but noticeable. "Sir, do you have the vehicle's information?" "I do," I said, opening the invoice. "And I also have confirmation that my signature was falsified on the financing agreement." A longer pause this time. I could hear the operator recalibrate, their voice shifting from routine politeness to careful professionalism. "Understood. Let's proceed." As I provided details, something inside me loosened, a knot I hadn't realized had been tied since childhood. There was no guilt, no hesitation. Just procedure. Boundaries enforced through documentation, not emotion. When the call ended, I placed the phone down with the same gentle precision I'd use for a tool I respected. Then I opened a blank email, no speeches. No accusations. No dramatics. Just truth, measured and concise. Subject: regarding the invoice. Buddy. I will not be covering Serena's vehicle balance. Additionally, my name was used without consent in a financing agreement. The matter has been reported. Please do not contact me regarding payment expectations in the future. Name. Reading it once more, I felt its finality. Not sharp, but cleaned. I clicked send. The soft sound that followed wasn't loud, but it felt louder than anything they'd said to me this entire year. A tiny digital note punctuating a lifetime of unmanaged boundaries. And the strangest part wasn't triumph. It wasn't relief, it was stillness, that a sense of being settled. For the first time in years, maybe ever. The next morning my phone was already vibrating before I even opened my eyes. A constant, buzzing pulse against the nightstand. Calls stacked on missed calls, messages layered on messages, a digital avalanche begging for attention. I didn't reach for it. Instead, I slid out of bed, stretched, and walked to the kitchen. The quiet click of the coffee maker felt grounding, familiar. Steam curled upwards, slow and steady, like a reminder that my first responsibility was myself. Not them, not their panic, not their crisis management. Only after the first sip did I unlock my phone. 13 missed calls. Dozens of texts. 4 voice messages from Grant. I pressed play on the first one. His voice was low, controlled. "Call me back. Immediately." The second had more edge. "I don't know what you've done, but you need to fix it." By the third, the control had cracked. "Do not ignore me. This has gone far enough." The fourth, desperation. "Please. Just call me." I didn't. Serena's texts were next. Rapid fire, frantic, full of blame. "Why would you do this? You're ruining everything. Dad is furious. This is your fault. They're towing it right now. Are you happy?" Attached was a photo of the repossession truck lifting her car, the front wheels already dangling in the air. She'd even included a crying selfie under it. As if guilt was a currency she could still collect from me. I stared at the screen for 3 quiet seconds. Then I hit delete. No anger. No satisfaction. Just nothing. The messages felt like background noise in a life I no longer lived. I put my mug in the sink, grabbed my bag and headed to work. Traffic flowed as usual. The office smelled like fresh paper and whiteboard markers, and Kai, my co-founder, peeked over his monitor when I walked in. "You good?" he asked, eyebrows raised in that way only people who actually know you can manage. "Yeah," I said. And it was true. A few hours later, another notification buzzed across my screen. This one from Elise. Not a paragraph. Not a plea. Just 4 words. Are you safe? I stared at them for a moment, surprised, confused, and strangely touched in a way I didn't want to unpack. I typed back the only reply that felt right: I'm okay. The phone buzzed again immediately. Another surge of messages from the rest of the family, each louder than the last. But they no longer had weight. Not the anger. Not the blame. Not the chaos, fault. That word had followed me since childhood. This time it didn't land, and as the day stretched forward, a quiet anticipation coiled inside me, because I knew a confrontation was coming, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid of it'd be 5 o'clock. The office had settled into its usual end-of-day rhythm. Keyboards quieting, lights dimming, soft conversations drifting toward the elevators. I was wrapping up an email when the elevator chimed behind the glass wall of our workspace. .1 chime. Then footsteps. Then the unmistakable tension of 3 people walking with purpose. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. I felt them before I saw them: Grant, Serena, Elise. All standing in the doorway of my office. No invitation. No warning. Just presence. Loud, entitled, heavy. Grant spoke first. We need to discuss this. I looked up slowly, closing my laptop with deliberate calm. No, I said. We don't. His jaw tightened. Don't start this attitude with me. We came all the way down here. And you shouldn't have, I interrupted. This is my workplace. Serena scoffed dramatically, arms folded like a spoiled child denied a toy. You ruined my life over a misunderstanding. You signed my name on a contract, I said simply. That's not a misunderstanding. Her face flushed pink, but she didn't respond. Grant stepped forward, voice dropping into that sharp, commanding tone he'd used my entire childhood. You embarrassed us. Do you understand that? I stood. Not in a confrontational way. Not aggressively. Understood. Even that seemed to jolt him. Family invites each other to Christmas, I said. If you get to exclude me, I get to exclude myself from your expectations. The silence that followed wasn't quiet. It was thick. A weight that settled directly onto the 3 of them. Serena blinked rapidly, her mouth opening and closing like she couldn't decide which insult to throw first. Elise looked down, her hands twisting around the strap of her purse, but Grant froze. Not with anger. With comprehension. For the first time, he wasn't looking at a child he could overpower. He was looking at an adult who owed him nothing. For the first time, I thought. He realizes I'm not negotiating. I'm not returning. I'm not his to command. He straightened his shoulders, a rigid, brittle motion. If that's how you want it, he snapped, then fine. He turned sharply and walked out. Serena followed immediately, muttering something under her breath that didn't matter enough to register. Elise stayed. Just for a moment. She stepped forward until she was close enough that only I could hear her. Her voice was soft, strained, carrying something that might have been regret or simply exhaustion. I'm glad you're safe, she whispered before I could respond. She turned and hurried after the others. The door closed behind her with a click, that quiet, exact final sound. I stood alone in my office for a long moment, feeling the stillness settle around me. Not empty, not lonely, but solid, controlled. The kind of silence that felt less like absence and more like authority. When I got home that evening, the apartment greeted me with the same stillness it always had, but something about it felt different now. I checked my phone out of habit. No messages. No missed calls. No new demands pulling at the edges of my life. The silence wasn't empty. It was complete. Almost structural, like the walls themselves were holding the quiet in place for me. I set my bag down, slipped off my shoes and filled the kettle. The soft hiss of water heating was grounding, ordinary in the best possible way. When the tea was ready, I stepped out onto the balcony, letting the cool Denver air brush against my face. Below me, the city stretched out. Indifferent, beautiful, alive. Cars moved in steady lines. Lights blinked on one by one. People existed in their own little worlds, following trajectories that had nothing to do with mine. For once, that thought felt comforting. I leaned against the railing, letting the weight of the day settle. Years, decades, unspooled behind me like a long ribbon of moments where I'd bent myself around other people's expectations, shrinking when I needed space, quieting myself when I needed clarity, carrying burdens that were never mine to hold, and all this time, I'd mistaken that bending for love. But stepping away, stepping back, refusing to carry what crushed me, that wasn't rebellion. It was survival. Lisa's voice drifted through my mind, soft and trembling. Are you safe? She hadn't asked if I was angry. She hadn't asked if I'd forgive them. She'd asked about safety. For the first time in my life, I realized that distance could be an answer to that question. A real one. A necessary one, because space between people isn't always punishment. Sometimes it's the only way to breathe. Back inside, the apartment looked exactly the same as it had that morning. Blankets folded, books stacked neatly, the lamp casting warm light across the floor. But tonight it all felt uncomplicated, defined, mine, and there was no pull, none at all, toward the noise I'd walked away from. A soft ease settled into my chest, unfamiliar but steady. A peace that didn't demand anything. A peace that didn't shrink under guilt or expectation. Just peace. Sometimes distance is the only version of love you can give yourself. I sipped my tea, watching the city lights flicker like tiny declarations of possibility. And for the first time, my life felt like it belonged solely, quietly, deliberately to me. Forward wasn't a place I feared anymore. Forward was finally open. When I finally stepped back inside, I closed the balcony door gently. The latch clicked into place. A soft, certain sound and no voices followed. No footsteps trailed behind me. No one demanding explanations or apologies or pieces of myself I no longer owed. Just the room. Just the soft lamp glow. Just me. I stood there for a moment, feeling the simplicity of it. The stillness wasn't eerie or hollow. It didn't echo with what was missing. Held shape. Held weight. It held me. People think the hardest part is letting go. It isn't. It's realizing how long you held on to a weight that was never yours. That truth settled over me like a blanket. Warm, grounding, undeniable. For years, I thought silence meant I'd been forgotten. That quiet meant I'd been excluded, erased, dismissed. But eventually, something subtle shifts. Silence stops feeling like absence. And starts sounding like freedom. I walk through my apartment slowly, touching the back of the couch, the edge of my desk, the stack of books waiting to be read. Nothing dramatic. No triumphant music swelling. Just the feeling of inhabiting my own space fully, without shrinking, without bracing. The life ahead didn't need fireworks. It didn't need declarations or revenge or anyone else's permission. It just needed to be quiet. Intentional. Mine. I paused in the center of the room, letting myself breathe in the kind of peace that doesn't ask for performance. The kind of peace that doesn't disappear when someone else walks in. The kind of peace that comes from choosing yourself, without apology, without spectacle, without fear. Outside, Denver hummed in the distance. Inside, everything was still, unmoving. Certain. An irreversible change had taken root. Not loud, not boastful, but steady. A shift so complete it didn't need to announce itself. I sat down on the couch, legs folded beneath me, wrapped in a silence that finally felt like strength. No fanfare. No celebration. Just freedom. And for the first time that was more than enough. The next morning I walked into work with a kind of clarity I hadn't felt in years. No shaking hands, no tightness in my chest, no rehearsing conversations in my head. For the first time, the silence from my family didn't feel like a wound. It felt like space. Space to think. Space to breathe. Space to finally belong to myself. Kai noticed it first. He looked up from his laptop, eyebrows raised. You look different. Lighter. I laughed, a small, genuine sound I wasn't used to hearing from myself. Maybe I finally stopped carrying things that weren't mine. It wasn't a confession, but he understood. There was a softness in his smile, a recognition that didn't make me shrink the way it once might have. His approval didn't feel like validation I needed. It felt like acknowledgement I had earned. The day moved fast, packed with meetings and tasks, but for once I wasn't just completing them, I was leading them. When I presented the new proposal, The room went quiet, then broke into nods and scribbles. Even my manager leaned back impressed. "Excellent work," she said afterward. "You're stepping into yourself." Maybe she didn't know how true that was, but I did. There were no texts from home. No missed calls. No sudden apologies or guilt-laced messages. Just absence. And instead of grief, I felt relief. The kind that comes when you've stopped waiting for something that was never going to arrive. And the days that followed, I found myself smiling at small things. Being able to buy groceries I liked, rearranging my apartment the way I wanted, cooking dinner with music loud enough to drown out doubt. Even my co-workers noticed. Kai started bringing me coffee in the mornings, saying it was for the new you. I wasn't alone. I was building something else. Slowly, quietly. A circle of people who showed up without being asked. A chosen family I didn't need permission to keep. And standing in the middle of that ordinary, extraordinary day, one truth settled over me like warm sunlight. The city didn't care who I had been to my family. It only reflected who I was becoming.